Hello, everybody. I'm Joshua Fields Milburn.
And I am Ryan Nicodemus, and welcome to another episode of Living Room Conversations.
We're here with Peter Rollins here on the Minimalists channel for YouTube. And today we have a question. It's a question about love or not loving, I guess. Jessica is asking us, why do we fall out of love? What stops the love from continuing to flow?
Yeah. Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah,
oh,
Peter,
right.
give us. I can pontificate for a little bit if you want me to.
Well, I've had such a great day, by the way. I don't know how much this is connected to the other podcast, but we've just had like a 2-hour conversation about love and desire and meaning, and yeah, it's been beautiful.
I think now we have to end it by falling out of love.
By falling out of love,
no,
question.
We feel the same way, man. What an awesome, genuine conversation we had on the podcast, even with the postscript Patreon episode we did.
Oh, yeah, that was a lot of fun about meaning and
Yeah, it's been an awesome day. So that's why we have you here, man. Like, you are the love expert. You don't even realize that, but you're the love expert, man.
For those of you watching this at home, Peter is the author of a book called Enduring Love, which is a graphic novel about love. Also, the producer of a film called Making Love, and we talked a lot about that on the podcast. But if we're diving into Jessica's question here, I've fallen out of love before.
Yeah, me too.
And I don't know why.
Yeah.
Well, Pete.
Okay. I'll go if you want me to.
Okay, go for it.
Well, I'm just trying to think of my own experiences where I have fallen out of love before, and the times where I have been in these long-term relationships where I have fallen out of love, I didn't realize it at the time. In fact, with the relationship that we were talking about before we even started filming here, I didn't realize till years later that I never was actually in love. I was in love with the idea of being in love with that person, but I think when I started just 2 relationships, specifically 3. I guess I was married, so that was a big one. But there's 3 major relationships I can think of that I started it on what I thought was love. And when I spent so many years with someone, I realized, like, oh wow, like what I was attracted to with that person, it wasn't necessarily love. Maybe it was more ephemeral than love. I don't know if that.
Yeah.
If that's something you can bounce off of, but.
Okay, yeah, let's give it a try. Because something we talked about earlier was the most precious material in the world isn't gold, isn't health, isn't all the money that there is. What we desire is the desire of the ones that we desire. Mm-hmm. So really the most precious material in the universe is desire, the desire of those we desire, the first being our family, our parents. And we're often, from when we're a child, trying to work out how to evoke the desire of the other, how to answer their desire, how to be desirable to them. And so we play these games. Obviously, you see it very simply in children who are always dressing up and playing different games and trying to work out how do they fit with their parents' desire. Mm-hmm. But we continue to play these games as we get older. And we talked about how love is overvaluing. To love something is to value it beyond utilitarian use,
right.
To value beyond what you should, because beyond what's healthy. Mm-hmm. Is to love someone is to, in a sense, say that beyond pleasure, beyond enjoyment, beyond my own life, I am committed to you.
So when I say I love you, I'm saying I overvalue you.
Yes,
in a way.
It's so funny because the way that you say that, and you said it in the podcast, it's almost like love is this. It makes it sound like love is this emotion that maybe isn't. I don't want to say it's not necessary, but it's a detriment. Is what it almost sounds like.
It's totally irrational.
It's irrational. Yeah. However, you did a beautiful job in the podcast talking about how love is like really, that's kind of what makes us human.
Yes. Yeah, love is a horror. Love is a terror. There's a philosopher, Zizek, talks about this. And you're like, love is my goodness, if you can get out of love, then get out of love is horrific. And that's what makes it so beautiful. Yeah. Because love, in a sense, is where we, as human beings, different from like our dog or our cat who gets along with life, pretty well. Love can get us to these like heights and also bring us to these oceanic depths. So love is a difficult thing. Like sometimes that's why people get married. Sometimes it's because love is so difficult that you can kind of say in sickness and in health and richer or poorer, we'll stick together. Almost like this craziness of love is so much. Let's institutionalize it in some way.
Right.
Love is it wrecks your life. It stops you from doing stuff like you don't want to do your podcast. You want to, you don't want to you don't even want to be moral.
Love makes you. It kind of makes all of us a little manic depressive.
Yeah, it's a crazy ride. But that's what we talked about earlier in the podcast is what gives life meaning. Because meaning, by definition, is in a sense finding something that you overvalue, that you give yourself wholly to. So the question is, how do you fall out of love, and what happens,
or why does it happen?
Why does it happen? It sounds. I mean, a very basic thing that comes to mind is, our desire is evoked in different ways, and we learn how to desire when we're young. And for some people, they need jealousy to desire. They need passion. They need, certain things evoke their desire. Sometimes it can be being mistreated, so we end up falling for and loving people who are really bad for us. We can't help it, but because that's something that evokes our unconscious desire. And when we fall out of desire, I guess basically what's happening is this relationship is no longer sparking that need within us in the same way, and that can be for a multitude of reasons. So I guess I just start with that is we fall out of love when our desire is no longer being fueled in some way. Yeah, so
I think that makes sense. It's funny because what I was trying to say at the beginning of this was I have fallen out of love, but I was never actually in love.
I wonder whether that's always the experience. It's like when you fall out of love, you look back and go like, how could I have ever been in love? And when you're in love, you can never imagine not loving the person. So I sometimes wonder that's actually, like when you meet divorced people, they'll often go, I don't know if I ever did love them. I just wonder whether that's actually, when you're in love, you can't imagine not loving them. And when you're out of love, you can't imagine loving. That's one of the natures of love.
I have a different experience from Ryan because a lot of the people who I've been in love with or been in intimate relationships with, I think of my former spouse as a good example of this. I think in many ways I love her more now. We actually have a better relationship now than when we were married.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's obviously a different kind of love. It's like the love changes shape in a way where it's a more sort of platonic love, or it's a different type of caring. But like it also, like that the desire was gone. During the podcast we talked about satisfaction and when you get everything that you want, sometimes you no longer want it anymore. Generally you don't want it anymore. I think one of the ways to kill love in a relationship is to remove all the tension, remove all the friction, remove all the negativity, all the things. If you get everything you want in the relationship, that's a good way to fall out of love.
Yes.
This is great, man, because there isn't one reason why you fall out of love, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like we all three have different answers.
Yeah.
And maybe it comes down to what we value. I mean, Josh and I are always talking about long-term, values and beliefs, and how we have to our short-term actions have to align with those in order to live a meaningful life. I mean, people when we first started going on tour and stuff, people would, and they still ask us this, but they would ask us, what is happiness for you? And for me, I used to really think what is happiness? Like, that's so weird. And then, I would say, oh, well, happiness is, I don't know. But when I really look at that question, what is happiness for you? Like, happiness isn't the point. The point is, for me, is to live a meaningful life, and you do that by those short-term actions aligning with the long-term values and beliefs. And the beautiful thing of living a meaningful life is happiness is this byproduct. What I'm getting at is that in these relationships where maybe in the beginning the values, the beliefs, maybe they are in alignment, but then maybe they fall out of alignment. So whether it's with me, who I'm saying I was never actually in love, or and I already forget your guys' answers already, but I'm trying to find a common thread here, basically.
Yeah, and I like this conversation because I find the question so hard. When you said the question before, I was like, oh, out of all the questions and the things we've discussed, for some reason this became this was like, oh, this is a rock that will be difficult or impossible to crack. But here's a more philosophical way to maybe parse it out, is to say that maybe to be human is to, overvalue, as in to give ourselves over to a cause or to a person. And over life, what we value changes. But actually, there's always something. Now, it's not quite true, but there's a guy, Viktor Frankl, who once talked about how when someone with depression, because depression in a sense is you don't really desire anything anymore. It's not that you are unhappy as so much as everything is grey. You don't want to get out of bed, you don't want to work, so your desire is not functioning properly.
This is Man's Search for Meaning?
Oh yeah. It's a very good book. In one sense, depression makes life kind of meaningless. But for Frankl, there's always some meaning by the very fact that you're alive. And he would ask, why have you not killed yourself? Similar to what Camus asked. He says, why are you here? Why did you come to therapy? Why are you standing here? And what you would find is, even if it's just the tiniest thing, maybe it's your dog, right? You just love your dog, or your mom, or just, some little experience of life. That is an expression of love. A tiny, almost extinguished, but it's there. And then what the analyst tries to do is fan that a little bit and get your desire functioning again. And so sometimes we fall out of love because we enter into a depression. But for someone like Paul Tillich, the philosopher and theologian, he would say that we always have a concern and care in some way, even when we're deeply depressed. Something, even, in fact, somebody might say, well, what about suicide? But the truth is, often people take their own lives because it's the one way that they can continue to affirm. Like someone says, they'll be better if I'm gone, or I'm no use to anybody, or it's as an act of revenge. But there's still something even in the act of death that they're trying to affirm. It's just a very perverted thing.
In the act of suicide is, in a sense, I don't know why I just had this up, but it's almost like that's maybe the only way they can express love. I still think suicide is what you just said to me. It makes it feel like there is still some type of love there, because going back to the over caring, caring about something too much, like or giving something, making something overvalued, that is the act of love. Well, that life you would think is undervalued because they're killing themselves, but really what they're saying is my life, I should be happy. I shouldn't feel this way. Life should be this way, and so they're going to end it because it's not that way.
And I have a friend who's struggling with that at the moment, and one of the reasons why he struggles with it is because he imagines that his family would be better off if he wasn't there.
Right.
That they would be able to go off and do something else. And so even in...
It's like the best way that he could add value to the other relationships is to not be there.
Yeah.
So and that's where you start with him then, is you start and go, right, you are affirming life in some way. How do we fan that into life? So you could say that to be human is to love. Even in the pits of despair, there's something about life itself that is commitment, and that may be almost extinguished, and some individual might really open it up to us. But love is the objects of our love change over time, but if love is kind of overvaluing some aspect of reality, we never fully fall out of love. We just change what our love object is.
That's a beautiful place to end it.
Yeah.
All right, y'all, check out Peter Rollins' work. We'll put a link to his website. You can check out his new film. It's called Making Love, and then also Enduring Love, if you're a Patreon supporter of his. I think that's the only way you can get the graphic novel now. Yeah. It's all sold out. But, all right, y'all, if you like these living room conversations, we're clearly not in my living room today. We found a room that we were able to drag Pete in. We blindfolded him.
Hey, any room that we're in, isn't it technically a living room?
Because we're living in a room.
I feel dead inside, so no, it's not. This is a dead room.
It's a dead room.
All right, y'all. But if you like these answers, you can ask a question below. We'll get to your question next, hopefully. And if you like our answers, feel free to subscribe or don't subscribe, or do whatever you want.
Or subscribe, then unsubscribe.
All right, we love you, and we might fall out of love with you one day. See you later.
See ya.